Hi, you're listening to Boggy Talk, Faith Conversations in the Mud, a resource of Church on Bayshore. We typically want every matter of faith and life to have crystal clear answers, but it isn't always that easy. This podcast digs in to help Christians think with a kingdom mentality about topics that sometimes get muddy and bog us down. So let's dive in.
Hello, coming to you live from the catacombs of Damascus Road. Church.
First of all, we're not live. We're not in catacombs, and it used to be Damascus Road.
I know,
That's nice.
we're in, but it feels like it sometimes that we're in the catacombs, kind of buried back here in the Boggy Talk studios. But hey, thanks for tuning in to Boggy Talk. Hope you're doing well. We're just excited today because we have some very special guests. We have Alec Ammons, student minister here at Church on Bayshore, and Lukas Homer, our kids minister here at Church on Bayshore, and also not special but special, James Ross.
Not special, but special.
Not special guest, but a special person.
Isn't that whenever we did the climate survey for our staff and then you were asked to describe me, you guys said not special, but special.
That can be quotes, actually.
Is it better to be special or extra? I don't know.
Ooh, it's better to be special in my opinion.
Yeah, because extras, you're
so extra.
You require so much. So
that gets thrown around in my house all the time.
Yeah,
you're so extra. About each other, which is like the Christian way of insulting each other, right? Like the modern Christian way.
Extra and mid. We get
mid. No, see, I don't have a teen. I don't have a high schooler yet.
That's like the way you're saying that.
That's coming to our home as well.
Bet.
Yeah, you're so mid. Bet.
I'm not. I just
slapping. Bet. All right.
Bet.
Yeah. You want to bet?
Yeah,
that's right. Let me show you what that meant back when I was a kid.
We're showing how much we understand about young people, which is why we have them on here today, right?
That's exactly right. So
you guys are still young.
Have been. That's right. I mean, for just a little bit longer, you are. But it's funny because you guys are, in your 20s, but to our students, you seem very old.
Prehistoric.
So, that's right.
Honestly, yes.
Kids have no concept of age. That's so true. Like if you ask a kid, how old do you think I am? They're like, 17, no, 70, no, 300.
Yeah, right.
It's my favorite game to play with our students.
Right.
Yeah.
So, Justin, why are Alec and Lukas here with us today? Other than the fact that we like them.
We have been on Sundays in a study of Galatians about the gospel, and we've talked about things that can pull us away from the centrality of the gospel, and we've talked about liberalism and lawlessness, and today we're talking about progressivism, and we are having Lukas and Alec here, not because they are recovering progressives, but because they're very familiar with, I guess, really the progressive culture that they've grown up in, and also just having, not too far removed from college themselves. And they both work with our next generation ministries, our student ministry, our high schoolers and middle schoolers, and our students and our kids who really are growing up in a culture that is pushing what we would call a progressive agenda. Mm-hmm. So we wanted to get their opinion, their take on some things, and kind of how to talk about this as families, how to talk about this as a faith family, and really what to look out for. So
yeah, no, that's good.
Is that good enough?
I think that's adequate. That's adequate reasoning. Bet, I think that's
for sure. Been out of frame here a second.
I think that. I remember being a young man like you guys once upon a time, and I think in each of us, and I think this is a little healthy, if you don't have this kind of questioning conservative values and the status quo, you're probably not like really maturing. But also you realize a lot of people your age kind of go full on, even within the context of the church and Christianity. And so I think you guys are still in proximity to people who are more sympathetic to that. And I think it would be good to have you guys chime in. And these things are shifting so quickly, so I think it would be good to hear from you guys as we talk about this. So Pastor Justin, what are we talking about when we're talking about lawlessness and progressivism and all that stuff?
So I think that's a great question because it's important to define what we're talking about, because definitions matter. If you'll remember from sermon 2 weeks ago.
Oh man, you listened?
Definitions matter. Motivations matter.
Man.
That's, I listen sometimes.
Yeah.
And I hear it 3 times. That take lots of
that's true. That's a good point.
I just lost my note. But progressivism basically is... So what we want to say too, progressivism in and of itself isn't necessarily a bad thing, because progressivism is the ideal that things can be better, that the status quo is not the best it can be. So how this gets played out in our culture is usually through types of social reform. I think when most people hear, and especially in the church, hear the word progressive, what we're really talking about is a liberalism. That's what gets talked about in politics. And so that would be, when you think liberalism, in the culture, we would be talking about being affirming of all LGBTQ plus lifestyles, abortion, full support of that. Those are some of the political issues. And within the church, liberalism would be the Bible isn't necessarily all true. Some of it's just the message may be true, but the words may not be. You get some of these. There is no absolute truth that can creep into the church. So we want to understand that progressive thought isn't always bad, but when it takes the form of liberalism, we want to be very careful. And so,
well, you're doing a good job here because you realize, I can tell because I know you now, just even as you're saying it, like there are so many things people think whenever you're saying these words.
Yes.
So like,
and you run the risk of like, you want, as a Christian, you want people to know the truth.
Right.
And the culture we live in right now is such we need conversations, but we want sound bites. And so people attach themselves to one thing you say. And so you have to be so careful in everything you say, or all of a sudden you're a bigot and I'm not listening to you. So that's the world you guys live in.
That's why we haven't said anything yet.
Good point.
You don't want to be canceled.
Yeah, no.
So I do think it's important, like progressivism, you said this is fine. Like it's good that we
want things to be better.
It's good in America that we progress past thinking black people were 1/3 of a person.
Exactly.
I think that's a good progression.
When you guys,
the
right to go. That's progressive.
The council has spoken here.
Yes. These are good things.
So, and but when we're talking about this today, we're more so talking about, the context of Galatians, Christians who believe the gospel, then Christians who feel like the gospel is restrictive. So they're starting to walk away from the gospel because really they're saying, hey, I'm not, Jesus dying for me on the cross isn't enough for me to base my life on. So one of the manifestations of walking away from that into lawlessness, which is really liberalism, is this progressivism where we then begin to feel like we are validated because we've become very free thinking people. And so now, and then we have churches like this. Ours is not this, even though there's other struggles, but we have churches like this that the litmus test of your righteousness becomes we are these inclusive, accepting, non-restrictive, non-legalistic people, and you've created another gospel. So we're really talking more about how the church is becoming like this than we are about culture today. Correct? Yeah. Okay. All right. Sweet. So should we start asking them questions?
Let's ask them some questions.
Okay.
Let's see how they do.
Soundbite time. Come on.
That's right. Please tweet this. So I would just start with, how have you guys both sensed this, or maybe even felt this pressure, given the context maybe you grew up with in school and college? Did you feel this pressure, or even with your peer groups? You have friends who now have maybe drifted this way, and what have you done?
Yeah. You want to go first?
Sure. So my context would really be in college. I was in the religious studies program.
And this, where did you go to college? This is
I went to MTSU.
What does that stand for?
Middle Tennessee State University.
Okay. So this is not a private school, not a Christian school.
There's no affiliation.
State university.
Yes.
You went to one of those.
Yes, one of those. And so the program wasn't faith-based at all. We were learning about all different kinds of religions and all different kinds of theologians and academics that had all these opinions on what religion meant and is it true? Is it not true? What do we use it for? And so a lot of the people that were in my classes, you would think, oh, religious studies, there's religious people. And it was not that. It was like very few actually claimed to be a part of a religion. Most people were there to study this question of why do people run to religion? Like, why do people use that as a crutch? As opposed to like people actually practicing.
Yeah.
And so in those classes were a lot of like progressive people that were looking for like these answers of like, why are religious people so like sticklers about all this stuff?
Right.
Why can't they just love everybody? Why can't we just accept everything? And so trying to understand those questions. And so I was in classes with tons of people that did not believe what I believed and did not like that I believed what I believed. And so there was a lot of pressure on me that I really just chose. There were a lot of times that I chose not to speak up about just different things. And so that was kind of my context of like being surrounded by people that had lots of friends in my classes that were gay and that were a part of the LGBT and that were just thought. And
you forgot the Q plus.
Q plus, yes.
Sorry.
And just like that, just thought and practiced their lives a lot differently than I would. So I just got to observe a lot of that in my circles and in all my classes.
Did you? So you feel like? Obviously, you grew up a lot more conservative. Actually, all of you guys grew up a lot more conservative than I did. But did you kind of feel this social pressure that like you don't fit in if you don't trend in this way as well?
A little bit, because the conversations that they were having were about like volunteering at the Pride March in Murfreesboro and just going out on the weekends with their friends and like voting seasons and all this stuff. Like these were the conversations that were happening that I had to be a part of because these are the people that I was in all of my classes with. And it was one of those that like, it was either speak up and say something different but because they were also talking about people that lived like I did in a negative connotation. And so there was a lot of me observing from the outside that like, oh, I could speak up about this, but this is not going to earn me any favors in conversations.
So it sounds like you stood your ground pretty well. Have you guys seen friends that haven't fared as well in standing their ground there?
Yeah, I would say I have some mentors from the college that I went to, people that I worked with. I was employed by them.
You were at a Christian college.
I was at a Christian college, yes. And they have, just in the past couple of months, it's interesting. One mentor moved to California to speak out against this kind of stuff as a missionary. And then the other mentor has moved kind of well to the other side, more progressive. And it's just kind of interesting to, as you look back and be like, man, where was that as he was speaking into my life? And is there any of that has like that I missed? So that's been an interesting thing that I've just walked through over the past couple of months.
So this is Boggy Talk, so we give a lot of opinions, and sometimes it makes things muddy. And you're welcome to do that. From your opinions and perspective, what do you think the appeal is, or the draw is in that direction amongst young people now? And we can talk more about what we've seen over the last, ancient times since we've been alive.
Back to our prehistoric days.
Yeah.
I would just say, I think one of the biggest draws is a emphasis on acceptance, and especially for people even that are in this culture even more than I am. It's how can you're in much closer contact with people who believe those things or are walking in a way of life, in a more progressive way of life. And so you're experiencing something that is, you're having on a more day-to-day basis, reconcile your beliefs with your everyday experience. And I think that's a real challenge for young people, especially as the church doesn't or hasn't in the past, Big C Church, spoken out of how we can be involved in and do life with those people and love on those people without affirming their beliefs.
Yeah, it's good.
Yeah, I would say it's a struggle of like self-denial. Like I think that's a big thing. Like as life has gotten easier, which I mean, in some ways it hasn't gotten easier, but we don't face the same struggles that people 100 years ago faced.
Right.
And so like we've seen it in our parents' generation and
the good old days when people died in their 40s.
Yes. We have more choices and we have more freedoms. And so why would we deny ourselves?
That's great, man. That's great. Not that's great. I mean, that's great insight. Yeah.
And so it's like, who am I to tell somebody that how they want to live their life and how they want to love and how they want to vote and how they want to support somebody is wrong. And that's the big question that like it's hard to answer unless you have this religious connection to say, I have something bigger than me, a lot bigger than all of us that I trust to tell me what's right and what's wrong. And it's not just me because I don't know what's right and what's wrong half the time anyway. So it's hard to not be the driver, and especially in this day and age where like we have so many choices and we have so much freedom to do and whatever we want. It's good.
Yeah, I think what you're saying is so good. And I think we forget just how where we are and we look back. I remember, what you're talking about, this pressure to accept. I think that the pressure to be accepting isn't new, but I think what is new is now when you're not quote unquote accepting is that you're labeled as someone who hates.
Right.
Whereas before you would just be, well, you're someone who doesn't agree. Now you hate me because you're not a and it really is this shift away from, acceptance of universal truth or absolute truth. I remember in college, I went to a school that was not a Christian school, but it had a heavy Christian influence in the student body. And my freshman year, my comp, a writing professor, she was probably the definition of a liberal, just everything you could think of. And one of our assignments was writing a paper on whether or not gay marriage should be legalized. This was the height of it. And she said from day one, and for those of you who believe in the Bible, you cannot use the Bible as a reason for whatever you decide. And I remember being so challenged in that class to think outside of, forced to think outside of what I believe is absolute truth. And I remember it was one of those crisis of faith moments for me, because I was like, well, I know what I should. And my flesh was like, I'm just going to write a paper that says it's okay because I just want an easy A, because I think that's what she'll do. But I ultimately was like, I could not get settled in that, and I couldn't do it. And so I had to do a lot of digging to really come up with the research side of it, that, to prove the stance, and ultimately got a great grade on it. Again, we had a great conversation about it, and I was like, wow, I had to lay aside some of my assumptions of her as a professor because she treated me with respect, which I wasn't expecting. And I think that's a two-way street we've got to work on. But all I have to say, this shift away from absolute truth, and especially for students and kids now. So you are in the business, in the ministry of equipping parents and equipping students in their faith. How do you address this? Because I don't think this is something that really was addressed when I was in student ministry as a student, because it was a need, but we didn't know it was a need. But we know it's a need now. How are you doing that? And how would you counsel parents in this?
Hey, let me interject something real quick, just because I think all that you guys are pointing out is something that's incredibly important. We live in a world that doesn't see absolute truth, but when we're talking about deserting the gospel within the church and Christianity, like, we're talking about people who there is an appeal here to absolute truth, and so the guys that, and women that you're with in the class, like, you can only show them what you believe and that's it. But the Christians who are walking into this,
that's good.
It's kind of this drawback, like, but don't you see you're drifting from? So as you answer Justin's question, really think about that in mind, like
twofold,
to Christians, what are we saying to them, specifically young Christians who are hearing the same things you're saying, and probably more so?
Yeah, I would say for the student ministry context, working with parents is a huge part of it, because they're the ones having the day-to-day conversations with their students, and wrestling with the hey, I'm on the car ride from school, and my student is asking me this question that I don't necessarily feel equipped to answer. And so providing parents those resources of, hey, here is somebody who is speaking out on this, who's an authority on this, and can help show them, especially when you add in technology and all that, how they can utilize or what their student is experiencing on technology. Specifically for the young people who are walking through this, it really is calling out that truth continually. I know in our context, I'm constantly hearing from students like, hey, so I have this friend who believes this. How can I reconcile that with my own belief? And really, it is just a pointing back to Scripture, to that absolute truth, and helping equip them on having those conversations. I think that's a huge role that the church can play, especially as a student minister, is how can we encourage our students to have those conversations in a loving way? I think one of the two passages of Scripture that kind of jump out as me as like something that you learn in kids ministry, and even if you haven't grown up in church, you may know these, like, love thy neighbor as yourself, and for God so loved the world that he gave his only son. And there's this idea of love that permeates through Christianity, and helping our students see what that love actually means beyond themselves and their own desires or the desires of their friends, I think is crucial, of like redefine. And it's not a redefinition, it's a reminder of the true definition of love, and how our students can engage their peers with love. That is a love of the Father, and showing their peers who have different beliefs than they do, how they can love on them and help point them back to Christ as well.
Yeah. And from a kid's perspective, like kids, we're preparing them to enter into a world full of technology. They're on the brink of it. They're getting screen time. They're getting TV time.
Some of it way too much, right?
Some of it way too much.
Yeah.
But for the most part, most of them don't have a cell phone yet. They don't have that unlimited access that they're about to receive. Hopefully not about to receive, but we'll probably receive.
With some limits. Come on, y'all.
Unless they're last in for us.
Hawaii.
Yeah.
I think the important part there is just building a foundation and making the most of every minute. Because I mean, as adults that come to faith later,
right?
Like your story a little bit, you have to do a lot of work to find that foundation and do a lot of work. And how cool would it be if we can get our kids to do that and to just have this foundation? Because I mean, the big kids ministry saying is that our kids are being discipled every minute of every day.
Absolutely.
Who is doing it? Is it you? Is it the TV? Is it your teachers at school? Is it like who is doing the discipling? And so you just want to make sure that you have a good foundation that they can build on when they start to enter these conversations where like kids really aren't fighting over what's right and what's wrong. I mean, they're fighting up because someone stole their toy or because their parent told them to do something that they don't want to do. Whereas in middle school and high school, they're going to start having more of these conversations of like, why don't you agree with me on this?
Right.
And so like them having this foundation, even if they don't know the answers, because I don't expect them to know all the answers to all the questions that they're going to face.
Because I don't know all the answers to all the questions.
They can come back to say, I don't know the answer to this, but I know that my foundation, like I know that God's word is true. I know that this is what I have. And so that's really the goal in kids ministry. And from an adult Lukas helping other Christians, I would say kind of just the big thing is you're not going to win people over by screaming at them and telling them that they're wrong. And so I have still maintained really great friendships with a lot of the people in my religious studies classes that live their lives very differently than me. But because I was kind, because I engaged in conversation with them and I didn't just sit in a corner with my earphones in and didn't listen to any of them, I engaged in the conversations, even though we saw eye to eye or didn't always see eye to eye. Like we are friends on social media and we still keep up. And so they're getting to see what I do for a living. They're getting to see me sacrificing time to hang out with the church and to go to conferences and to hang out with kids and do all this stuff. And so may not have changed any minds, but they're getting this insight and that they have this connection. And it's because I didn't tell them that they were wrong all the time. And I didn't scream at them and I didn't cut them out of my life. It was because I was a friend, and it's ministry is always going to happen best in the context of relationships. And so you have to start with that relationship first for people that are struggling with this draw to like, how do I engage in the world, even though I believe differently than the world? It's like, just have this relationship and stand for what you believe in that foundation.
Yeah. Can I jump off something that you said? Because I feel every time I'm on
our knees are all pretty close to each other, so be careful.
I don't want to land on anything. But every time I'm on Boggy Talk, I feel like I talk about this. But you mentioned like your kid or your student is always being discipled by something, right? And I think when we talk about technology, particularly social media, especially with the advent of like Reels and TikTok, we talked about sound bites earlier. I think one of the biggest things is there's a reason why the people who are popular on platforms, they're called influencers. And it's often because they are they're an influential piece of your student or kid's everyday life. And I think that's a huge piece as we talk about this because frankly, like the largest influence out there, the most influencers do have that more progressive mindset. And so for a parent or student to actively be engaged on not their own social media, yes, you should be careful, but on your student or your kids' devices is so crucial. So that way you know what they are hearing day to day, because it's so important. That is that a lot of times a kid or student is probably spending more time scrolling through TikTok than they are in God's word. And so we have to kind of levy what is their biggest influence, especially when the overwhelming majority of influence online is from that more progressive view.
Yeah, I think, trying to kind of wrap this up because I know we got some questions we want to ask you guys too. I think that a few things to consider is one, what Lukas said is so important. In a place where there's freedom, there's going to be a continual draw to gratification of ourselves.
Right.
And we are, in Romans 1, when it's condemning the culture, it not only talks about those who are doing, progressive, liberal, sexual things, it says those who approve them as well. And I think that we continually are drifting towards approving others, because if we approve somebody's sexuality, then who's going to question how we spend our money? Right. And so we want that same kind of freedom. And we feel like if we offer that freedom to other people, there's this exchange, which that exchange really doesn't matter. It's about God. I think we need to understand, and we're talking a lot about young people, but a lot of adults are here too, and in the church. And more as our church grows, we see more and more of this culture coming, just because of the style of our church and the programs we offer. But, I've referenced this several times in this series, or will be. It's not true freedom and true love for a child to play in the road and to not tell them about the dangers that are coming. And I think when we live in a place where we create security and we create barriers, we can play in that road for a long time feeling free. But it still doesn't mean there's not an impending danger.
Right.
And I think we don't see judgment in our culture. And again, because we typically equate God's love for us with how our life is going, we kind of forget that car's coming of judgment, and then on the other side, I would say just what Lukas said, if we believe the gospel is powerful, we don't have to add our anger and our trying to make people culturally acceptable to the gospel. We have to believe in the transformative power that if Jesus takes over their life, those things will come. And again, it doesn't mean we would never speak to someone who is liberal, if you want to use that word, in some things that are in opposition to the Bible. But it also is the realization they may be struggling in sanctification through some of this through the rest of their life, just like I'm struggling with some things at 40 years old, being a pastor as long as I have been. And I think we have to believe in the power of the gospel, and we cannot drift the other way in a progressive culture, just like a progressive culture can't drift away because we see legalism as a problem. So I don't know what else you guys want to say about that.
I think just coming back to, the series we're in is called Centered, and it comes back to the gospel. And one of the things, the differentiation we made between engaging the culture, but then just engaging the church and those within the church who may drift away, it comes back to the gospel. It always comes back to the gospel. We never move on from the gospel. And it comes back to, and I think this is why it's important that our student and kids ministries have such a huge emphasis on our students and kids having a foundation in the word.
Yeah, that's right.
And so I think having a foundation in the scriptures, what they say, and, moving towards you even can have a knowledge of the scriptures and still drift this way. So we just need people around us who are going to question us and the way we live. So community is a huge piece of this as well, who are going to hold us accountable to the truth.
And there's going to be a tension for as long as you live. It's never going to be neat and wrapped up tight and all that. So
and the people who think it's neat or I think churches that try to make it neat or tight usually end up with a bunch of legalists,
you're right.
who are judgmental because, man, the standard's just so much, and it's just a lot messier than that. So,
good.
All right. So question time. We already asked you a bunch of questions.
More question time.
Let's move
softer questions.
Yeah, softballs. Here we go. So, but we do want to talk about student ministry and kids ministry. Yeah. And you guys have both just announced camps for the summer for kids.
Registration's open right now.
Registration's open, churchonbayshore.org/events. But why do we do camps? Because shouldn't what we do at the church just be enough? And shouldn't we why do we got to do camp? Go ahead. Tell us why we do
You're
camps.
a future camp staffer.
A future?
Or
a past
former
camp staffer.
Different.
That's right.
Wait.
Former. Yeah, no, camp is just the greatest experience. I love everything about camp. And I've worked 4 summers of camp, worked with churches as they did camp. And I just think it is it's an incredible experience, not for the mountaintop experience for kids to come and then to just never talk about Jesus again when they go home until camp next year. But for it really is it's a one-off experience where everything they do every second of the day is planned and is intentionally faith is intentionally put into every aspect of it, from conversations at dinner and lunch and breakfast to the games that you play aren't just games. We can relate these back to the gospel, to the relationships that you build in your Bible study groups and the work that you're doing. It's all, it just shows our kids just this incredible experience of they're building all these faith they're having all these incredible moments where they're learning so much because it's all day for 5 days, but they're also just having a fun time while doing it. So it's showing them that like a faith can be fun and we're having this great experience and I'm learning all of these really cool things, and that it doesn't just have to stop at camp. Like that we're trying to help them see like you can do faith throughout your day, every day. And it doesn't have to just be a camp experience.
Yeah, I think student ministry, it's very similar to that, with the addition of part of our camp is doing missions with partnering with local mission groups and churches to support a local community. And I think that helps our students kind of break their bubble, especially in Niceville. It kind of helps show them that there's a world outside of Niceville. And it helps them develop a heart for service. We intentionally ask like, hey, if you're feeling a call to ministry through this, so it helps us call out the called. But also I think kind of adding on to what you said, it helps our students in light of the conversation that we've had today, have a space where they can, where the entire intentionality is pointed towards Christ. And they can feel free to talk about Jesus with their friends, because that is what you are there to do. And we see that, and we really push our students after camp, not making it a mountaintop experience, but to press into that over the next year until we go back and have that another experience where it's kind of a reminder that this is not just a week, but this is our whole lives is dedicated towards worshiping God.
Yeah. I think of the word immersion, like it's just a week of being immersed, you know, in community. And I think that you're right. If we don't have the other things in place when they get back, then it very likely could be just a mountaintop experience that doesn't stay. So be warned about that. And you have those kids who that's why they go, and, you know, what are you going to do about it? But history of the church, I mean, you know, last 40 years has shown how pivotal camp has been in a lot of students and children's faith journey. So, yeah. Keep doing it, guys.
Sign up for camp.
I know you guys are super tired when you come back. Lucas is usually like beat red, and
it's the best kind of time.
It is so exhausting, but it is so fun.
Yeah,
it really
so
is. Camp is the best. I agree. I love camp. So also I have 4 kids who will go to student camp this year. So it's going to be a quiet week for us. It's kind of crazy.
I have three. Yeah.
Man. Yeah. All right. Any other questions? There was one other I thought.
There was one more question.
What it is,
what was the other question? Well, let's get going with the game.
Let's do it. All right.
Do you guys have anything you want to say about children's or student ministry? Oh, yeah, I know. Why should people serve in children's?
Yes, so that was what it was.
Come on.
Because we do need more people. We're growing. Guys, we're growing.
So many kids and so many students.
Super exciting.
There's 4 million of them.
No,
it feels like in
it
that
does.
space.
Absolutely.
There are 300 plus on a Sunday that are under 18.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
I mean, that's
God is good.
We've been having about 1,000 people. 3 out of 10 of those are under 18 years old, you know, so probably more really, but isn't that incredible?
It's amazing.
Awesome.
It's
You're responsible for that, guys.
No pressure.
Yeah.
Don't mess up.
So fun.
We all mess up. But why serve?
I think in student ministry, a big need, and I think one of the biggest drivers of why you should serve in student ministry is we have a unique opportunity to meet students relationally and show up consistently and really be engaged in students' life week in and week out. You know, in our culture, in our context, you don't know the impact that having a consistent touch point with a student can have in the long term. I can think of volunteers from when I was in student ministry who just were there. And you may not have the most spiritually in-depth conversation. You may just play ping pong with them for 20 minutes, but that makes such a huge difference. That time and proximity with students just has a huge kingdom impact. Students are a lot of fun too. You kind of get to be silly, but you can also have great conversations with them. And so it's a very relational ministry need. And that's our huge need on Sunday nights and on Wednesday nights is more people who are excited about being relational with students and just getting to know them and kind of digging in with them and with their mess. So that's student ministry. Why you should serve. Please.
Why should you serve in children instead of students, Lucas?
Kids ministry is just incredible. It can be very hard, and I tell people when they sign up, like, kids ministry is really fun, but it's also really hard because kids can be hard sometimes. But it's just really incredible to get to be a part of helping them build these foundation faith markers in their lives, like learning how to memorize scripture, learning how to what does it mean that God is present? What does it mean that God is with us? Like, answering our curriculum goes through big picture questions every month. And they're like deep questions that we get to just talk about as we go throughout the Bible, and help our kids understand, what does it mean that God is present, and what does that mean for me? Not just like, how do I answer this question, but what does it mean at school and at home and with my friends, and just helping them do that. And I think it's similar to student ministry. I mean, I still remember my 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade Sunday school teacher, Miss Joanne, and because I was one of the few kids in her group, and like, just the foundations that I learned and just how she taught me and invested in my life was just an impact that is unmatched in my life.
That's great stuff.
So serve, folks. If you want to know how to
do
serve,
it.
go to our website, churchonbayshore.org/serve. There's a form you can fill out, and that will start the process. So do it.
Yeah, I'll say, Christy my wife serves in student ministry, and every Sunday she's just got something cool that the Lord's doing in the high school girls, and, senior girls. I mean, they're awesome and like so difficult at the same time, but it's just cool to hear like their hearts. And then, serving in 4th and 5th grade boys, I'm telling you, there's constantly Wednesday nights that, man, tears are about to come to my eyes because the things those boys are saying. And we got some foster kids in there, and not me personally, but it's just, I'm like, wow, Lord, like, you're letting me be a part of this. It's just cool, man. So get off your whatever you want to use and help.
Tushy.
Yeah, get off your tush and serve. And then maybe you could sit down and talk, so you can get back on your tush. Okay. All right. Can we move on? Because that was just getting awkward.
Okay. All right.
Okay. So today's whatever game, I'm very competitive, if you don't know this about me. And so I've coached Justin's kids, so in sports, he knows that. And we've talked about this before. So we're going to do a little competition. So I'm going to say, you got to tell me the age of somebody at a certain period of time. You'll hear it. Whoever's closest gets 3 points. Second gets 2. Last place gets 1. And then we'll add them all up at the end. So I got 10 different people.
Okay. So these are real people.
These are.
And how old they were.
Yeah. You'll get the guess. You ready?
Okay. I'm so
All right. Here we go. The first. How old was Elvis Presley when he had his first hit?
22.
Justin says 22. 20 from Alec.
28.
28 from Lucas. So it was 18 years old. So Alec gets 3 points. Justin gets 2.
I almost said 18.
Lucas gets 1, right?
I almost thought
I was going to go 19. But
we've been talking about progressive culture, right? One of the most influential progressives from a while back died. I can't say because I don't know for sure if you'd figure out when he was born. Was John Lennon from the Beatles? How old was John Lennon? Huge successful career when he was killed. How old was he?
Oh, I have no idea. I'm not going to answer first.
38.
38 from Alec.
42.
42 from Lucas.
35.
35 from Justin. He was 40 years old.
Wow.
40 years old. So you were 38?
I was 38.
I'm going to give you first place because you were lower. But
closest without going over.
It's pretty
That's
close.
right.
Yeah,
this is the Price is Right.
I've come out.
What did you say, Lucas?
I said 42.
He said 42. Can you believe he's only 40 and he accomplished all that in his life?
That's crazy.
And then died.
That makes me feel bad.
Mike Tyson. Do you guys know who Mike Tyson is?
Yeah.
Okay.
Mike Tyson's Punch Out.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. He was a boxer, became arguably the greatest boxer of all time for a short period of time.
He's the best.
And then, nice. Now he's got an acting career and all this stuff. But, his career ended abruptly when he was, convicted of a crime and went to prison for a long time. How old was he at that point?
He was. I'm not going to say anything. I don't know. Oh, Lucas has to go first this time.
Okay.
Yeah.
38.
38?
I'm going to go 29.
29.
I was going to say 31.
31. He was 26 years old.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Wow.
No, I thought he was older.
I'm pretty sure you won that again. didn't you?
Alec, you're so good at this.
Yeah.
You came in second that time, right?
Lucas and I are going to battle
studied.
now for
Alec
second.
is cleaning house right
All
now.
right.
How old was Mozart when he died?
Oh.
Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart.
It's so fun.
in case you
I
guys
should,
didn't know
I
which
should know
Mozart I was
this, and I
talking
did
about.
know this in college when I had to know it for an exam.
I mean, he pretty much lived his life, right? He got sick, relatively young, but
Yeah. And I think everyone pictures him old because all the musicians at that time wore those like long white wigs.
yeah,
I'm going to say he was 40.
40. Only 40.
24.
24.
38.
38. He was 35, so Lucas wins that.
Let's go. Way to
I think
go.
you came in second, right, Justin?
I think so. Yes, I did. I absolutely came in second.
Okay.
I will gladly take last place
man.
on the
Okay,
Mozart.
we got. All right, bringing in a little more. How old is Selena Gomez right now?
Oh, that's so confusing.
26.
26,
Yeah, I think she's. I can't say 26, so I'll say 25.
25,
27.
27. She's 30 years old.
Oh, my
I win.
goodness.
Yes, I pulled the Price is
Wow.
Right move there and won.
Yes, you did. So Justin got 3.
I thought she
Who
was
was
my age.
26?
I was 26.
And you were 27? Okay. Man,
I was
you're-
25.
Oh,
I was 27.
okay.
I took
Yeah.
last.
Okay, halfway through.
That was like kind of the point,
Alec
bidding
is
$1.
well in the lead with 12 points.
Oh.
Justin is in second with 10 points.
Woo, I'm
That's
coming for you.
close.
And
Coming
Lucas
for
is
you.
bringing up the rear with 8 points. But
Uh,
it's anybody's game.
It's okay.
It's
You're
anybody's game.
better at many other things than guessing
That's
people's
true.
ages.
True.
Michael Jordan, the basketball player, not Michael B. Jordan. Which, if you ever saw Space Jam 2 when Michael Jordan came in, that was great.
There's a difference.
Okay. Michael Jordan, the basketball player. So only 2 sports questions, just so you know,
okay.
Lucas.
Who I would say is the GOAT, but my kids would say I'm wrong.
And they're wrong.
I agree.
accurate.
Won his 6th NBA championship
Unreal.
in 1998. At what age?
I was 1 years old.
Yes.
Um,
So thankfully you are alive from
yep.
one of the NBA's.
If I think back in my memory, I'm going to go 28.
I was really about to say
28.
28, so we can combine our points and split.
No, I want my
That
points.
doesn't work. You gotta go 27 or 29.
I'm going 29.
29.
If you can't say 30. I mean, you can, but
27.
27. He was 35.
Oh, my
should have
goodness.
one up.
Right.
you should have.
Yeah.
Darn.
Born in
That seems
1960.
old.
I was thinking he did it earlier.
So
in
you
his
won
career.
that, right?
No, he
Justin won
oh,
that one.
One,
You just-
two,
Oh,
three.
sorry.
I think we
I'm
just
pulling
tied.
for you, just so you know.
Yeah.
It's not looking good.
It's okay.
But change of categories, it might work. How old was Billy Graham when he preached his first sermon?
First.
And there's going to be a bonus point for this one.
First sermon, like, are we counting like
In a church, he was
like,
preaching. It was a
Okay.
legit sermon.
I've been to the Billy Graham Library. I should know this.
You should know this.
I think you got to go first on
Yeah,
this one, too.
since you've been there, you have to go first.
You
I think he was young. I think he was like 17.
17. Okay.
I was going to say 16.
16.
Really, I was going to say 13.
13.
But
Oh my
I'm going to.
goodness.
You said it already. Too late.
Oh, okay.
All right. Lucas win. I just wanted Lucas to win. It was 19. 19.
Mm,
So-
19.
So Lucas gets 3 points for that one. Alec 2. Justin 1.
Oh,
okay.
man.
All right. We got 3 more.
You
Okay.
said there was a bonus point on
Oh, yeah. Where did he preach that sermon? You could get 3 points if you know
Like
the
state
city.
or
the
city?
city and
Oh,
state.
gosh.
1 point for the state, 3 points for the city.
I don't even know where he's from. Is that
North Carolina.
North Carolina.
North
Okay,
Carolina.
thanks for that.
North Carolina is where he's from, but I don't know if that's where he preached.
I'm going to go Winston-Salem, North Carolina.
Okay.
He's in, yeah, I don't know. I'm going to say California.
Okay. You ready? Palatka, Florida.
Palatka.
Palatka.
That's like a sign on I-75,
Yeah, it
right?
is. I don't even know if they have a sign on I-75. It is a very
Palatka.
sorry, all our Palatkians. I don't want to
Yeah.
make any. Okay, Obama. How old was he when he was elected president?
Oh, he was the youngest. No, JFK was young. I don't know. Some U.S. history person's like, I can't believe they don't know this.
42.
I majored
Speaking
in
of
history.
progressives, right? 42,
45.
45,
I think he was 40.
40. He was 47.
No, he looked.
Mm.
Obama
He was
looked.
the third youngest.
Okay, he
president.
looked-
So you got that right.
He looked so much younger than that.
And
Not
you
when he
did
exited the
second, right?
presidency. He looked a lot older.
Okay.
It's true.
Presidency aged him.
Yeah,
I
I
mean, it
know.
aged anybody, but
So yeah, the youngest president. You know who it was?
wasn't JFK.
I'll give you
He's the
3
second.
bonus points if you get it, and you're not Alec.
You better know a history major.
I know. I feel terrible.
You should, because I didn't know. Well, you shouldn't, because I didn't know Mozart. So, death.
Yeah, you guessed JFK.
It's not JFK.
Well, you can't guess the other 6 presidents. Not JFK.
I don't know.
No idea.
Probably like one of the first presidents, because they like all died.
Yeah,
young.
I'll go Sam Adams.
Sam Adams.
I have no idea.
Okay.
I don't know.
Teddy Roosevelt.
Oh,
And then
no.
JFK.
I dressed up as Teddy Roosevelt for a school thing one time.
And
I
you
should have
still
known that.
missed it.
Goodbye.
And you
Okay,
shame.
2 more.
Shame.
How old was I when I first became a pastor? Lead pastor.
You've gotten a
Thankfully, I'm not
significant
the pastor.
advantage.
I know. I'm like, when did
This
I
gives me
meet
great
you?
comfort that I'm not the pastor that like talks about my story every single Sunday. So you guys like just have this memorized. Back in 19 when I was.
It's 2023. I'm just kidding. Back date. I'm gonna go 24.
24,
I was going to say 26.
26,
27.
27.
How dare you?
25.
Oh, I was almost at 25. I was like,
But you get it
earlier.
you said 24, right?
You said 24.
Okay.
Yes.
How dare you?
All right, let's
All right.
see. We got one more question. Alec has 5, 8, 11, 12, 14, 16,
There's no
18,
need to count the
21.
score.
Justin has 5, 6, 8, 10, 13, 16, 18.
Ooh,
So,
okay.
How to
And
reach.
then Lucas,
the president question.
do you want me to say?
No.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
I'm just playing.
Lucas
fun.
is having a ton of
last
fun.
one.
Winner takes
This
it all.
one-
Here.
This one, when Tim Allen first started Home Improvement, how old was he?
And
Is that before or after the Santa Claus movies?
I don't.
I think it's
before.
before. It's
Okay.
before.
but it's funny if you go back and actually watch that, he looks a lot older
Mm-hmm.
now. I mean, like, yeah,
He looked old then too.
yeah, exactly. That's what I was saying. Like, he looked old then, but I'm gonna say 41.
41,
31.
31,
32.
32.
You're the one.
He was 38 years old.
Let's go.
Oh, wow.
I go back and look at that, and I'm like, I'm older than he
And
was
was
then.
So what did you say? You said 30
He-
what?
I said 32.
Oh,
I-
and you said
I
30.
went up
I said 31.
Oh,
Yeah, you won that one, Justin, but you still lost.
I still lost the
You
game
still
of
lost
life.
by
So
2 points.
man,
Alec won. You're the winner, Alec.
Let's go.
On the first
What do I
ever-
get? Dun, 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 dun.
You can have one of those Bibles that your
Yeah,
microphone is stacked
Thank
upon.
you.
That's right.
Well,
Yes.
that was great. I think we're out of time.
We're out of time. Hey, so I was like, oh yeah, I've got to end this now.
Yeah.
Hey, so hey, if you're
We
like us
just
and
never
not
want
good-
the fun to stop,
I know.
guys. Y'all should
I'm
come
here
on
for
Buggy
it.
Talk more often.
Yeah, it's good.
That's
Woohoo.
just
good,
invite
y'all.
us. We're there.
Okay. I know. I was actually
Good.
surprised you both showed up.
What were you doing last night? Oh,
That was
I
very
wasn't
Gen Z
invited.
of you to both come. You're like, you're going. All right, we'll both come.
We coordinated
Yeah.
for sure.
That's right.
Actually, Gen Z is more does their own thing. That was millennials who were like, who's going?
Yeah, I'll let you
You
know
know.
who's going to be there, maybe. But hey, we do thank you for joining the conversation. Continue the conversation. Tune in next time.
Thanks for listening to Boggy Talk. We are so glad you joined in the conversation. Go ahead and subscribe so you don't miss a beat.